Two Boys, Two Sessions.
What's up?
It's the Refest. The penultimate episode of Fire Emblem Sacred Stones for you today.
Yep. Bit of a redo.
It's a redo. Yeah, we had some bad audio issues in the previous session, so this is us talking over the previous capture footage. Hope you're enjoying these strange podcast diversions.
Episodes.
It's one for us. Roll the intro. You think we're gonna beat all these games?
Nope.
Backlog boys.
No, probably not.
Hey!
Welcome back.
Here we are. Only one episode of Fire Emblem left after this one.
Yes.
So
penultimate.
Two including this one. Which sounds way less dire. Welcome back to the show.
You're just trying to give it some drama.
The most lengthy, involved series of year 2
Yes.
is finally coming to a close.
Well, it has been year 2 essentially.
Vaughn's swan song.
It's lasted the
Vaughn song.
Yes.
Yes, this series started year 2.
It will damn near end it.
And it will, yeah.
Cuphead might outlast it a few.
It will.
But
it will. Cuphead will be the last thing to end in year 2.
That's a difficult game.
It is. It is. And then we'll take a little break for a little bit and come back with something.
Hey, by the way,
if you might know as year 3.
Yeah, if you guys have any suggestions.
Yeah, if there's something you want to see.
Ideas, what you like, what you don't like about year 2 versus year 1.
Yeah.
Ideas for year 3.
Mm-hmm. We'll be hitting you with some kind of year 3 video as well, if you haven't seen that already at this point. But keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. And just let us know what you think. Give us your thoughts, your 2 cents.
Give us that feedback. Give me that. I'll take it.
Just because we've been doing this for so long. We've done so much.
We have.
Sometimes we don't know what it's actually like to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. This is the song. This is the song. So
yes.
This song right here, if you searched for a cover of this song, I think my video might be the only one.
Really?
That's a traditional cover, not like a remix or like a rip, but it might be the only one. I don't even know what it's called. I think it's like Lion's
Lament
song
or something like that.
It's something like that, something sad. But it's funny because this is one of my older videos, but it still it keeps up pace with my most viewed videos because I don't know if it's because it's the only one.
Sure.
Even though it's pretty poor audio quality, it's literally my phone microphone picking up an upright practice room piano in the video.
Nice.
Also, it's just from my Samsung Galaxy whatever I had that year when I filmed that at the university practice rooms.
Yeah.
Not a great video.
I just learned about this principle and I can't remember the name of the principle, but it's the principle where the most popular things continue to become more popular and lesser popular things continue to struggle to break through.
Yeah.
Forget what
there's a name for that phenomenon.
There's a name for that, yeah.
But the thumbnail I made in Paint, MS Paint is how I made the thumbnail. I just took the sprites of Erica, Ephraim, and Lion, and then put them over a picture of me in Paint.
Nice.
Just copied and pasted, and that was the thumbnail. So some high bars set there.
I just love how the bar for YouTube has gone up so much in such a short amount of time.
I feel like you've got to either. Well, I feel like there's still a spot for older channels or older poorer quality if it still does it to a really strong degree or a really high level. But other than that, it seems like there's not much room for amateurism. Yeah. You've kind of got to be flashy and good and clean.
Yeah. Yeah, if your video quality and audio quality is bad, the content has to be incredible. Mm-hmm. It has to be primo.
Yeah.
It's got to be the next chubby kid falling over video
Yeah.
that people just like share like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But those days are kind of over, I think.
Probably. And like it's funny because like this video that I made of that song, Lion's Song or whatever, on piano, it's like I didn't like go into that thinking like, oh, no one's done this, this will work out great. It was more
Right.
like
You wanted to
I
cover
wanted
that
to do
song.
it, and it was like it was so organic in that like at the point in time that I had started learning the song, which was actually when I was even younger. It was in like high school. I had like there weren't VODs or not VODs, rips of the soundtrack from this game. So I had
YouTube was such a different landscape.
I had to like I had to use the sound test to find this specific song and then listen to that,
Right.
and then figure it out, or arrange it on piano from that by ear on like on my crappy,
rather than pulling up the song
keyboard
on YouTube so that you could make a cover for YouTube.
I had to like get to this point in the game, recognize this song in game as like, oh, this would sound really good like while playing it. This might work really well, and then go back and find it in beat the game, and then go back and because that unlocks the sound test or whatever, and then go into the sound test and find it song by song, because the names don't tell you anything about it really. I just knew it was towards the end of the game, so like it's such like an organic idea without thinking about like, oh, this will work because no one's done it. And then since no one's done it, it's like one of the only ones that persists and continues to get views.
Yeah, now if you did that video, you'd have to have like multiple camera angles, and it'd have to be like an orchestral remix, and you'd have to have like a really flashy thumbnail and good lighting and a good camera, and you'd have to like overlay gameplay footage and cut back and forth. Just to be like a standard video.
Just to be noticed somewhat. Just
to be like, okay, this guy is par for the course.
Yeah.
And now I can just see if I like the music. And you got to have all your tags and your metadata in place.
It seems like, you have to do a lot more work to even get on the ground floor.
Yeah, it's gotten so ridiculous, man. Like, YouTube just used to be such a frontier. Like, from like 2009 to like 2012, like...
It's like the Wild West.
There were so many just like covers, like video game covers, and not like they are now, where you have like a green screen and like super high quality everything. Like it was like a person with their instrument, like you'd see them press the record button on their camera at the beginning of the video, they'd play the song, and then they'd press the record button at the end of the video, you know, and you can hear like in the back of the whole thing.
One take. There's a lot of just raw one takes with mistakes and everything.
Static camera angle.
And that seems almost like unbearable. Like if you make a mistake in a music video, you will get called out. They've got your number.
That landscape was different too.
Dude, they've got you on fucking speed dial. You play one wrong.
People are out there looking for that. They're looking for newspapers to wipe their butt with. You know, God, it's so different.
It's very different.
It's so different. Like that was when I got really into Kyle Landry.
He was kind of, because he's got one angle, one
camera angle. He was never
it's
like
just him playing,
you know, and he was just
recorded.
plugging his you know, keyboard right into his computer, so the audio quality was good.
And like all those like dearly beloved 09, 10, 11, 12, those all have errors. And he like admits it, and like he writes about it in like the description.
When he specifically did like improvised compositions and stuff too. Like it was not about like making this like hyper album perfect through composed kind of thing. And it was awesome. And like all the like guitar videos that I was watching at that time, you know, like video game covers and like shred stuff. You know, it was never like it wasn't, you never noticed the video quality. It was like you were just looking at somebody in their room, you know, and you could see like the posters on their wall, and you could see like the dirty couch in their mom's house, you know, or whatever it was. And it wasn't like you needed like some other flashy thing to look at. Like you were there to watch them play the guitar, and that's what you looked at. You didn't need. It was like, oh well, this video doesn't follow the 4-second rule, so I got a little distracted. You know.
Sorry, I'm making a quick note to myself. The game footage and game audio are very slightly off sync from what we are seeing. So I'm just gonna make a quick note of that.
Oh really?
Like yeah, they're not quite as tight as they were in the previous episode. Sorry, behind the scenes, folks.
Interesting.
Do you see what? Oh, I see it. Okay. Okay, sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, I see what you're saying now. I don't know why that is, because they were never like desynced from each other.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a problem for another time, though.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
It's pretty negligible.
Anyways, we
got a big project to talk about.
Oh yes, and we keep saying we won't talk about this franchise, but we
keep talking about it.
You have to keep talking.
Series.
We have to keep talking about it.
But this is a different subject.
Yes, this is.
It's Star Wars.
Mine is as well. But go on.
It's Star Wars. We're gonna talk about Star Wars, but we're not gonna talk about Episode 8.
Everyone's collectively groaning. Oh my.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about Episode
Again.
8. That's not what we're here for.
You love it. Come on.
I have decided to take on the task of creating my own fan edit of the original trilogy. Which, if you're not familiar with the concept, it's basically where you just edit the film in a different way, and sometimes people will make drastic changes, sometimes people will make minimal changes. Mine definitely falls closer to the minimal side of the spectrum. All I'm doing is I'm going to take the original Laserdisc versions of the original trilogy, which are, to my knowledge, the highest quality version of the unedited releases. So before any of the special editions or anything like that, they're basically the only unedited editions that were in any kind of high definition. I think they're 480p is what Laserdisc was considered. And then I'm going to take the Blu-ray releases, which are the overall highest quality version that you can currently get, but they have all of the special edition edits, all the crappy stuff that we don't like. And all I'm going to do is go in and find the scenes that have edits in the Blu-ray and replace them with the scenes that have, or replace them with the same scene from the Laserdisc version.
Okay.
And then if it's like a superfluous scene, like the Jabba and Han scene in New Hope or something like that, that just wasn't in there, we'll just take it out.
Okay.
So the ultimate goal being to create the highest quality version of the unedited original trilogy possible. And
interesting project. I know
just
that
for my own watching.
I feel like we've talked a
pleasure.
little bit about fan edits, but I don't know if I've ever
it's something
seen
that,
one.
It's something that's really interesting to me, but like you say, I've never really gone down the rabbit hole and seen one. They're actually pretty hard to find because a lot of them get like taken down or
copyrighted or something.
Yeah, copyright strikes and things like that. There's a big website actually just for Star Wars fan edits, and there's like dozens and dozens and dozens of them. And a lot of them I've like read the plot synopsis, and people will make like fake posters for them and stuff, and they look really enticing and interesting, but you have to go to like dark web torrent sites to find them. Mm-hmm. So I haven't really gone for any of them, and I just don't really have time to do that. But yeah, there's obviously there's tons of them for prequel trilogy because they're the most like contested of the films, but there's one where they take out Anakin altogether, and it's so it becomes a story about Obi-Wan. And apparently that one's like really interesting, where they take out all of Anakin and Padme, and it just becomes like a story about Obi-Wan. Or maybe it's just Attack of the Clones. I think it's just the episode 2. They like take out every instance of Anakin and Padme, and it's just like an adventure of Obi-Wan.
That'd be actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, it would be. And then there's other ones where they like do memento type edits where they like change the order of scenes, which is actually really interesting because there's a behind the scenes about the final edits that were made to A New Hope, and that actually happened to the film before it released. George Lucas had the scenes in a specific order, and there was a bunch of stuff that was in the early, like, couple, like, 20, 30 minutes of the film that was just cut to speed things up. And then the order of a couple of shots and scenes were changed, and it made the film good and what we know it as. And
Interesting.
yeah, it was extremely interesting, actually. I'll have to find that video again so I can send it to you. But somebody somehow figured all this out, and
about specifically like the pre, or the version that had
like
the earlier
before it
version.
ever hit theaters. Yeah, like on the cutting room floor, and they actually showed like a couple of scenes that aren't in the movie of like Luke like meeting like Wedge in like their hometown. And like just like all this, and then like hanging out at a bar.
Yeah.
And there's a part where he like looks up at the sky and like sees the Star Destroyer, and then it like cuts to that. And there's just like all this like superfluous stuff that they removed. It's very interesting.
So what I was gonna tell you about is I was talking to a coworker today who was like one of two coworkers who I frequently talk about with Star Wars.
Talk about Star Wars.
Talk about the coworker with Star Wars. That's what I do.
You use Star Wars to talk about the coworker.
Yep. So, and you know, we all gave each other all like the trio. It's funny because the nature of our different jobs is like we're never all three in the same place at the same time. But
Right.
we'll like two of us will converse, and then the other two will converse, and then the third pairing will converse, and like we'll all still like get the full picture of each other's
Oh, that's interesting.
things, but like
Throughout like a shift, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I suppose I have something somewhat similar to that at work, but not quite.
so my friend Thomas was telling me about he just finished the Revenge of the Sith audiobook,
Okay.
which he said he found very interesting and kind of intrigued me.
Audiobooks are blowing up, man.
Yeah. So it's like it has a lot of huge departures from
The screenplay.
from Revenge of the Sith, yeah, from the movie. But also, being an audiobook, it has so much more time to go into a lot of nuances.
Sure.
And so there's like a lot of things there's a lot of kind of, some people might like it for like the political aspects, some people might not because it's a little bit tedious, but like how Palpatine gets control of the Senate, how all these like little things that kind of happen really fast in the movie happen, and to kind of like smooth out this kind of overarching plot. But it also brought up this kind of idea that I don't know if the movies can tackle it, but it seems like something that suits the whole idea of the Jedi and the Sith, where there's like this. You haven't read Aragon, right?
No.
Okay. So a friend, when I was growing up, I was reading Aragon, and he had finished Aragon, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's just Star Wars except fantasy," and that kind of like punched me in the gut, where I was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, is it?" I was like, because I didn't want it to be. I wanted it to be like
simple?
this fresh new thing
Yeah.
that I knew about and not everyone knew about, and then in a lot of ways it is kind of like that. But then there's this aspect of like, Aragon will get into these confrontations where he's not just fighting the person that he's fighting or the entity he's fighting, but they're also engaged in like this mental battle where they're like trying to break down each other's mental barriers with like their magical sense, which is very much like the Force, to get into their head. And like, so there's this like 2-stage thing happening where they're fighting physically, and then their mental powers are just like also colliding, and all this is happening at the same time. And in the form of like a book, you can go into a lot of detail in that.
Yeah.
And so like the way he was describing the audiobook of Revenge of the Sith to me it's a lot like that. Like Anakin and Mace Windu you know, they're having the I am the Senate scene.
Yeah.
And
but Wallace is Palpatine.
Master Windu.
Have some cheese.
Have some cheese.
Oh my god. That is the latest meme that's making the rounds right now.
So funny.
I am the Senate, but insert whatever. But Palpatine is Shrek, or but Mace Windu is, you know. Oh god, it's great.
But the way he's describing a lot that fight scene and a lot of other fight scenes is like there's things like that also going on, where there's like these other layers of these confrontations. So it's not just lightsabers or visible force powers, but like their entire beings like just colliding,
Okay.
like almost invisibly. But the book can describe it really well.
Sure.
And so it's like, I wonder if there's a way to kind of, I don't know if there's a way to make that possible in film without like, I don't know, literal narration
Yeah.
of it. It's
Well,
interesting.
we said we weren't going to talk about The Last Jedi, but
Oh, we did.
it kind of ties in with what I was saying in that previous diatribe about how, because as you were describing the audiobook stuff, I was thinking like, wow, it'd be so neat to experience Star Wars in that kind of a way, where there's all this like really specific, subversive, kind of nuanced stuff that's like beneath the surface that's going on. And then I was like, oh wait, that's what I feel about Last Jedi. And that's why I think a lot of people don't like it.
And that kind of gets into some, it like touches on some areas that were like, there's the Luke, or not Luke, the Kylo and Rey thing, like their connections. It's almost like that same thing where their minds are meeting.
Yeah.
In this kind of new way that that isn't really able to be, or wasn't really known about before.
But yeah, it would be cool to hear a story like not so much like in the style of Last Jedi, where like everything's in the gray, like everything's like living in the gray, and you're having to try to like make your own decisions about where everyone's loyalty lies, but just like to have more detail, like you have in a book.
Yeah.
You know, like more detail about like oh, so and so, you know, saw so and so's facial expression, and that spoke to him in this specific way. And like you can talk about that for a page.
Or you could even get into people's perspectives.
Right.
As opposed to just like a, you know, third person view from above.
Like, oh, he has a mad face.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like they're telling you like what that person's thinking in that moment. You know, and yeah, books are just so much more verbose in that way.
He was telling me about. Oh, here's a problem. I didn't realize. So I took everyone's weapons who isn't in this battle, and I put them in storage, and that filled the storage completely. So now nobody can drop weapons, or nobody can trade. Nobody can trade weapons out of the inventory, which is a problem because we want those chests. So.
Oh, that's right.
We'll fix it eventually, but I think I end up just burning a staff and then using that to trade one item out of the inventory. And then that lets me drop one item into it, and it's a bit of a mess. But so he was describing how Anakin, in between like the events of, let's see, what was it? I think, he kills Palpatine, or not Palpatine, he kills Dooku.
Yeah.
Right? And so after that, in the audiobooks, he like he feels like it's a cold-blooded murder, and he like can't live with himself. And so the books kind of takes up his perspective. The book takes up his perspective, and like he doesn't eat or sleep for 5 days. Whoa. Because if he goes to sleep, he has dreams of killing Dooku cold-bloodedly, and then of Padme dying.
Yeah.
And so he can't sleep, and he can't bring himself to eat. So he's just like losing his mind and like driving himself insane and like hallucinating, and it's cool to see like the dots kind of connected into how he gets to the point where he does at the end of the movie, where he's able to just kill people and has totally lost his soul.
God, it sucks. It just sucks how much better they could have done
Yeah.
with like the framework that they had. Like it's like
Because I feel like the building blocks of the prequels are actually really
so
strong.
amazing. Yeah,
it's really
like,
strong.
It's like, okay, you set up this great foundation that you're leading into, and you're telling the story of a character who we know becomes an incredibly evil character, but we're going to go through this arc where you watch them like follow the path of the light, and you care about them. And then
you have to watch them get corrupted.
And then you have to watch them get corrupted and be like, no, and like watch them slip away.
Yeah,
and it's tragic. Tragic. Not even hero, really, just like a straight tragedy, because he eventually dies. And it's like, yeah, just that framework. It's like, wow, that's actually pretty unique and interesting. Mm-hmm. Like that's not even like an archetypal story, as far as I know.
And it's also there was this suiting this same idea of like going into more detail and nuance. Like there was this whole part in this audiobook about the Jedi Order trying to identify who Sidious is. Like they know he exists.
Yeah.
And they know he's within the Senate's inner circle.
Yeah.
Like the top of the Senate, but they don't know that it's Palpatine.
It actually seems really stupid.
And a bunch of them are convinced that there's no way it's Palpatine. He's being manipulated, and that there's someone else in his circle that's convincing him to do this.
Yeah.
And so there's like this hunt of where they're like trying to narrow down who it is.
Right.
And like they're using all of these plot points from other movies and or from the earlier prequel movies, and like I haven't read it, so I don't know how good it is, but like the way he was describing it, he was like, it was actually really interesting stuff to like have this like mystery where they know who it is, and the tension of like them trying to figure it out, but who it is. Yeah. And all these other things are happening around it, where things are just getting more and more out of control, and how like all intertwined it was, when it seems like it's not, sometimes not so much in the fast pace of the movies. Yeah. It's interesting.
Pretty unrelated, but something else I was thinking about recently with Star Wars. So how they refer to like Rian Johnson's making this new trilogy, right? And it's going to be like an original Star Wars story. Mm-hmm. And now we're referring to as these episodes. What we know Star Wars as, episode 1 through 9 is being referred to commonly now as the Skywalker saga.
Yep.
Right? So the prequel trilogy is about Anakin, and then the original trilogy is kind of the story of Luke. But then we have this new trilogy, 7, 8, and 9, and I was thinking like, how is episode 7, 8, and 9 a Skywalker saga? Because episode 7, Luke is in it for 5 seconds and he doesn't say anything. The movie's obviously not about him. Yep. And then in episode 8, he kind of comes to the forefront, but he's not necessarily the protagonist of the film, and then he dies at the end. And then we're going to have episode 9
without him.
Mm-hmm. Presumably. And then it's like, I was just thinking about that. It's like, the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy are so clearly the Skywalker saga, but is 7, 8, 9 really part of the Skywalker saga? Doesn't really seem to make sense to me as a name, and I don't have a alternative suggestion. Yeah, but it seems pretty silly to call it Skywalker saga. And I was trying to think like, who is the main character of this trilogy? Like, who is this trilogy about? And I couldn't really land on any one specific character. Yeah. Which is also kind of interesting to me. But I guess you could argue that the prequel trilogy is like maybe equally about Obi-Wan, or something like that. Or you could say that the original trilogy is also the story of Leia and Han Solo. But I don't know. Just something I was thinking about that I thought was interesting.
That's interesting, because I think it would, I guess in a way, like, you could almost separate like Star Wars, 1 through 3, 4 through 6, 7 through 9 as like Anakin, Luke, and then post Luke.
Yeah, others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Misk.
Because everything's happens still because of those two, the chain of events. But,
Right.
But that's a bit of a stretch
Yeah.
to say that it is theirs. Like it still belongs to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that's very plausible either. Okay, Vaughn, here's my ultimate Star Wars question.
Okay.
Sorry, I gotta fix something on the computer here. It's just bugging me.
Just going into Studio R there.
Studio R.
Yeah.
Studio R. We got some pirates on the show today. Here's my burning Star Wars question that I thought of earlier today and have been very, very anxious to ask.
Okay.
Who is the Phantom Menace?
If not Sidious?
Is that him? Because the Phantom Menace is the name of the first Star Wars film. Well, or episode 1.
Yeah.
Right?
I like to I always watch episode 1 first.
But Darth Sidious is like more of a character in 2 and 3. Wouldn't you say?
But isn't he directing he's still directing Maul?
He is.
As the
But he's just like
hologram.
But he's so less prominent than he is in 2 and 3.
Are you thinking it's Anakin?
Could be. I was thinking about this, and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty interesting to speculate, because there's been a lot of with all the controversy over episode 8, there's been a lot of people trying to go back and make episode 1 seem like really deep, and some of it's people just being memes and being edgy, but some of it actually is like, it'll like catch your ear for a second, and you're like, oh, actually, that's kind of interesting.
It's not just Jar Jar is
ultimate. Yeah, it's not just Jar Jar
most
cancer.
Powerful.
Yeah, which he is.
It's interesting because it could be. Because I mean, in the long term, Anakin is the ultimate Phantom Menace because he seems like this great beacon of hope and courage.
He's the menace developing the entire time, but he's phantom in that he's, undetected. He's invisible.
Yeah, and he also loses his hand
in a way.
He loses.
Yeah.
So this.
That was another.
Phantoms.
That was another one that I saw. Oh wow, that's very interesting. Phantom, like a phantom pain,
like a phantom limb. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
But no, there was another thing I saw where somebody was like analyzing the prequels, and they're like saying like how Anakin's like fascination with machines and robots like is a precursor to how he eventually becomes one.
Oh yeah,
because he's like working on the pods and he's like building things, and he builds 3PO.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, there's some substance. People are like digging really hard. It's funny how that substance gets, in the prequels.
Like once he gets a lightsaber, though, like it's put on hold for so long, like that. You don't see him like tinkering with stuff or like.
Yeah,
it's funny how that just kind of like goes away from Kid Anakin until, he's actually a robot. Yeah, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I've been coming across all kinds of interesting stuff like that lately. I guess when you it's that metadata working against me.
Yeah.
The internet's watching what I'm doing and is trying to pick other stuff for me to check out. I actually had one of the most creepy Big Brother moments that I've ever had in my whole life the other day.
What was that?
So Liz and I were coming home from Target, and I had picked up some ice cream and these graham crackers that are right in front of us. One of my favorite things to do is to take chocolate ice cream and then crush up graham crackers and mix it up.
That sounds good.
Like a ton of graham cracker, and I call it sawdust. You like mash up the graham crackers into like a fine powder, and then I mix so much of it in with the ice cream that it becomes this like sandy like mixture, and it's my favorite.
Okay.
But anyway, we're out there in the kitchen at the bar or whatever, the peninsula, whatever you want to call it, Butcher Block, and we're serving up some ice cream to ourselves, and I started singing a line from this Van Halen song called Ice Cream Man, which is this like tongue-in-cheek speed blues song. You know, it's like a B-side where David Lee Roth is singing about how he's the ice cream man, you know, and it's clearly like just a big euphemism for sex. You know, I'm your ice cream man, stop me when I'm passing by, all my flavors are guaranteed to satisfy, you know, that kind of thing. You know, just cheeky stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I was just kind of singing it to myself, and Liz is looking at me like, what the heck are you singing? Because obviously she has no idea what the song is. And I was like, oh, I should play you that song. And she said, who's it by? And I said, it's by Van Halen. And she's like, oh, I don't think I know any Van Halen. And I was like, oh, I should show you a bunch of Van Halen songs then, because you definitely know a couple of them and you don't realize it.
Yeah.
And so I go to my phone to go to YouTube. My phone was sitting next to me the whole time we were having this conversation. I open up my phone to go to YouTube and type in Van Halen Ice Cream Man. I typed the word Van, and the first suggestion was Van Halen Ice Cream Man. And I swear to God, I've never searched for that in my whole life.
Yeah.
And I was freaked out. Like, my phone literally heard what I just said and prepared that search result for me.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other explanation for that.
There isn't.
There's absolutely no other explanation for that. And I just had this like wide eye moment where I was just like, you know, things like that happen and you like kind of joke about it, or you kind of like, you're still kind of skeptical, like, oh, well, you kind of like explain it away with some kind of technological answer, half-assed, whatever. But like, that was black and white, cut and dry. There's absolutely no other way that could have happened, other than I was literally being listened to.
Yeah.
And it freaked me out.
That's spooky.
It was super spooky. And of course, you know, I just tapped on it and we listened to the song, but it's just like, man, this is like, it's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
Really, really weird that my phone was locked and, you know, Black Mirror sitting there.
Yep.
Not woken up, not being told to do anything, and it was listening to me. It's freaky.
It is freaky.
It's right in front of me right now. It's probably listening to me again.
Yeah. It's weird because I'm always so torn. I want there to be like, I want this, you know, piece of technology to be like so powerful that I could just do everything with it.
Right.
And that it's like
you want it to put the power in your hand.
I want it to be my personal secretary where it does everything for me and I don't have to, I could just do other things.
Yeah.
Like that's like the dream.
Right. But you want it to
AI
still
like
all
that.
be in your control.
Yeah. And then like it's always like, oh, well, the only way you could do that is by, you know,
giving the phone autonomy,
giving it access to do that. And then you're also giving, you know, the corporate powers that be behind that access to that same information, which then muddies everything even more.
Yeah.
We're like, you know, oh, now we can sell things that we know, you know, to people so that they can advertise to you and like all these crazy things that you don't want.
Data mining.
Yeah. And it's just like, man, is there a way to like get to the end result that I want, which is super powerful tools?
Yeah.
Without having to sell your soul,
your thoughts, and your search queries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your whims.
Yeah.
Like who would just show someone show like a stranger, or like, if you don't, would you go to an interview and just be like, you know, at the interview you have to print out your internet search history and just plop it on the table?
Yeah.
Like, that's their first impression.
Yeah.
Like nobody, because you always like have some little thing, even if it's innocuous, it's like, it's there.
Yeah.
And it might, there's no context to it. And so like the fact that it's out there is just kind of, ugh.
Yeah.
But then how do we get beyond that without
walking through that swamp?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know how like on a Google phone, when you open up certain apps, it's like, oh, well, such and such app wants to access such and such aspect of your phone.
Yeah.
You know, do you want to allow permissions?
Like, oh, you want to send a
this
picture message? Can Messenger access your camera?
Access your camera or whatever. Like, imagine getting to a point where it's like, can YouTube access your conversations?
Yeah.
You know, Like, so can YouTube listen to you hanging out with your friends so that it can get a better idea of what you like and suggest videos to you? Like, because what we're describing as what's currently happening would sound ridiculous to us probably less than 10 years ago. And so it's probably not too far off base that another 10 years from now, it's like, oh yeah, you know, your phone listens to you talking so that it can figure out what to sell to you.
Yeah. And I guess like
and that could just become normal.
I guess if it got to a point where like all of that learning is able to happen like locally and independently without like some sort of cloud or
like the device knows those things, but no actual people know those things.
It's just like
that'll never happen.
It's just like the algorithms themselves figuring it out and like not necessarily sending it somewhere where it
where
then
it's
gets
stored.
deciphered and stored and then sent back to you. If it could get to that point, that's like the perfect medium. But like,
I mean, I guess that would be interesting if it was.
How do the companies surrender that power?
Yeah,
probably not.
They just let they wouldn't let their AI be the sole owner of all that juicy data.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, you know everything that this person likes. Yeah, we kind of
so much power.
We kind of want that. Yeah, it's a scary amount of power,
and just like the permanence of things, like you can't.
Yeah, like, you can't go to Google and be like, I want my file.
Yeah,
and like burn it. You know, you can't take that data away from them. Like once it's out there, it's forever out there.
And like
every search, every question.
What am I debating here? I'm just sitting here looking at Lion.
Dude, you're just checking him out. You're scoping him.
Yeah, Lion.
Oh, there was a break. We paused the episode. You see it?
Oh, I do, yeah.
The scrubber is kind of over it right now, but yeah, there's a break right there. We must have taken a break to let the puppers out or something.
Oh, it might have been the Neems, yeah. Well, I guess we keep rolling.
Or actually, you know what it was? It was when Nemo was going crazy because Bjorn got here.
Oh, yep.
And she was barking like crazy. You can hear it in the ruined audio because the wall in the back of that closet goes right to the front door and it's pretty thin.
At work, I keep bringing up work this session, I guess.
Stop it.
Oh my God. There was, so I found this game recently, like within a week recently.
Okay.
It's called King Arthur, the role-playing war game.
Okay.
And to me, it's as amazing as it sounds. Like you take Total War and throw in King Arthur and like fantasy elements and then make it a role-playing game as well.
Okay.
And it's like, I'm as in as I could ever be on a game.
Yeah.
And it's like a super cool game where like you gather over the course of the game your Knights of the Round Table and you like send them on quests into all these different territories that you don't have control over. And, you know, you're like negotiating with the people to get there. And, you know, there's all of these major plot points where you're making decisions on these quests about that affect future outcomes of future things or future possibilities. And it's all like cascading and all interwoven into like the kind of same strategy, like turn-based campaign, real-time battles of like Total War. It's like, holy crap, sounds amazing. And it's kind of on Windows 10, it's unfortunately a bit of a nightmare because like 10% of the time when you start a battle or you end a battle or you execute certain commands, it just crashes to desktop.
Oh,
so it's like
yeah, that sounds horrible.
Yeah. So this it's not perfect, and it's, you know, there's issues with the game. It's not perfect. It's also at this point like 10 years old, but it's cool for what it is, and I got it for like $5 on Steam.
Oh,
it's
nice.
on sale right now. If it sounds appealing, check it out.
Right now in boys' time, not right now when you're watching this.
Right? Yeah.
Might not be
anymore. But So I'm at work yesterday, and a couple years ago I finished this book series about King Arthur, which I think I mentioned in the series, and it's like a kind of dark retelling of the story, the general plot line of King Arthur. And at work, I'm having a conversation with the same coworker who I talk about Star Wars, who I talk with about Star Wars. God damn it.
It's so hard to say.
It is. And we're like talking about this other coworker who, I know their name and I know what they do, but I don't know where they are, what they look like, or I don't know anything else about them.
A coworker?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're just but everyone knows their name, and everyone seems like they know them and is in contact with them all the time. And at one point I'm just like, oh, well, that's like Merlin. And also I keep, we keep talking, and another person comes up and I'm like, oh, well, that's this person. And I just start
relating people to the King Arthur characters.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's
the crits.
Dude, Naomi's the girl.
The crit queen.
Whew. But since it's one of the older, still existing fables, or stories that's been told over and over and over again, it just has those core ideas that are so universally applicable, the person, the mysterious force who everyone knows is there, but no one really knows
they can't grasp
what they're doing.
him.
Yeah. Which is Merlin. And this coworker, I see their names stamped everywhere. I see their work.
Right, they exist, but
I've never seen them work. I've never met them. You know, they've never. I don't even know if they know who I am. There's all these weird things that are attached to it, which fit into these super nice archetypes.
Yeah, it's like when I was talking about the friend in my old neighborhood where I never saw his parents.
Yeah.
Obviously I knew that he had them.
They're there, and you see the influence they have.
Right.
And the strings they're pulling.
But I couldn't prove that they existed.
Right.
I couldn't persist their memory in any way. That's so funny. Crazy stuff.
Boop.
Incorrect choice, Vaughn.
Can't go there.
So there was something else that we talked about in the previous version of this episode with the ruined audio that we thought was worth re-mentioning. And it was just the most ridiculous commercial that I've seen in recent memory.
Oh man.
I was at work, and nice one, Vaughn.
Well, at this point, I think the Game Boy had died. So
that's right. And
switched to the controller, and I just kept
GameCube controller.
I just kept hitting Z over and over again.
Screwed up because you're trying to hit R.
Yeah.
I was at work, and there's a TV that plays in the break room constantly. So whenever I'm in the break room to grab my jacket or eat or whatever, I just happen to look at the TV because that's just kind of the nature of TVs. You just mindlessly stare at it. It's really sad. Anyways, that's an unimportant tangent. This commercial came on. It was a Sprite commercial, and as you may or may not know, LeBron James is a pretty common person to appear in a Sprite.
And a lot of basketball players are
commercials. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I just know I always see him in a lot of Sprite commercials. He's a big spokesperson for Sprite. He's their endorsed guy. But this commercial was out there. It wasn't all right, he's in a dark all black room and he's got a Sprite and there's beads of sweat all over him and he's dribbling a basketball and he's narrating how determined he is, and then he makes a shot. Obey your thirst. No, it wasn't like a textbook Sprite commercial. This commercial, it shows this baseball stadium from a airplane bird's eye view, and then it zooms down in on the batter's box, and you see the back of the batter's jersey and it's like this orange and yellow jersey, and the guy is like sweating like crazy. He's got the big beads of sweat all over him, like soda bottle condensation. I don't know why they always do that in Sprite commercials, but it's like their thing.
Yeah.
And the guy has like condensation all over his arm. And, you know, immediately your brain is like, it's hot out there. And he's like batting, and you can hear like the roar of the crowd, like faintly.
Yep.
And the name across the top of the back of this batter's jersey is Thirst. And then the camera kind of pans down so that you can see like over the catcher's head to like the pitcher's mound. And you can see that the pitcher is like holding the glove up, you know, and he's ready to throw the ball. And you can see that the pitcher's team and the catcher as well, who's below, are wearing like Sprite colors. They're wearing these like green and yellow jerseys on the opposing team. And then it zooms up to the pitcher's mound, and it's LeBron James, professional basketball player, is dressed up like a baseball player standing on the pitcher's mound. And you can just see his eyes over the fingers of his glove. And his glove is made of ice. And there's like steam coming off of it, you know, to like show how hot it is or whatever. And of course the glove and his face all have the like condensation beads all over them. And I think there was like music playing too, this like suspenseful music in addition to like the crowd roar. And after you've looked at LeBron's eyes for a couple seconds, a can of Sprite just like creeps up over the tip of the glove to reveal that he is not going to throw a baseball, but he's going to throw a sweaty can of Sprite. And he just has the most like determined look on his face, like, I'm gonna nail this guy. And then, you know, he like throws it down the line super hard, and the Thirst batter, you know, cracks it open, and like Sprite goes everywhere or whatever. And I don't remember the rest, but you know, and then it's like, obey your thirst. But it was crazy. It was outlandish. Like, and I just remember like I was in the break room for like 30 seconds. You know, I like walked up there to like get something and then walked out. And I just kind of like looked at it as I was walking by the two times. And at first my brain was just like, oh yeah, Sprite, LeBron, whatever, baseball. And then like it wasn't until I was like walking out that I realized how ridiculous it was. I was like, wait a second. like Sprite commercials are almost always basketball. If they're related to a sport. And it was LeBron, but it wasn't basketball. And then he was like playing the wrong sport. And then just the premise in general of the like throwing of the can and the ice glove. It was just like, this is just bizarre. Well, super bizarre.
It's funny,
but it cracked me up.
I picture it almost like, the way I'm picturing it in my head is more like comedic. And I'm picturing like Shaq up on the pitcher's mound. He's got like a cheeky grin on his face. That would have been amazing. As he slides the Sprite bottle up.
God, I love Shaq.
Shaq is awesome.
Love him so much. He's so funny.
He's really funny.
So nice.
Oh man, but
I'm Shaq. I'm a real good guy. Do a lot of great commercials.
He's so great.
I will always wish that Shaq Versus comes back on the air. I gotta silence my phone after this episode. I'm sorry, guys.
But when you told that story the first time, since I was thinking of like a comedic version of this with Shaq, I'm picturing him sliding up the Elmer Fudd playing card out of the glove.
The Elmer Fudd playing card. Huge shout outs to Tanner Jones.
Oh god.
Probably the funniest person that I've ever met in my whole life. Just such an inherently funny person. Like,
oh man,
like
gotta
funny,
love those people.
Just effortlessly comedic in like everything that he does. Yeah, that's a really deep inside joke story to tell at this time.
Yes,
but you can dig for that in some other episode.
Yeah, mine for that. It's a good one.
Yeah,
you'll be happy with the result.
I don't even remember when that was told, so I can't even point you to the right series. But it's out there. That's a legendary story.
Imagine sliding a goofy-looking cereal box card into like a regular
standard playing cards, and then acting like no one was going to notice, but then clearly doing it in
Shaq
such a way.
And a big old grin.
Yeah.
Oh, I did it again.
Nice job, Vaughn.
Yeah. Whoops. Oh man.
This mission was the most like methodical and like tedious that I can remember in like recent memory, like where you were like super tentative with like all the placements, and it's like, okay, I'm just gonna move this one character across this one line so that these characters will move a little bit closer, and then everyone's gonna back up, and then we're gonna like reform and like surround this one character that like stepped out. You know, and then like repeat that process,
and like
constantly moving characters like in and out of harm's way.
Yeah, and like moving. Oh, how close do I have to get to trigger just one of these bad guys in this big group?
Yeah, instead of just triggering a big wave and getting like surrounded.
Yeah,
and having to fight your way out of that.
Yeah, it was a little. It was deliberate. It's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, as you'll notice, the enemy's turn, like nobody moves. Because Vaughn knows exactly where the like barriers are. Like if he doesn't move into a range that they can move to, then they don't move.
You know what time it is?
It's the time.
Next week, folks.
Next week.
Tune back in.
For the final.
For some groovy dancing
final episode.
By the Gorgons. They're gonna do a little shimmy for you.
Sounds crazy to us because we've said this before, but it will be the last episode of Fire Emblem Sacred Stones.
Definitively.
Next week on Monday Vaughn Day. But it won't be the last Monday Vaughn Day. Maybe for a while, but we're going to keep that. Stay tuned for Newt 1 on Wednesday, if that's not done yet. And more Cuphead on Friday.
Hit us up on the Instagram, the Twitter, the Snacklog.
Yes.
The Twitch.
Anywhere you can find us.
Facebook. Yeah, all of it.
And we'll see you in the next one. Y'all take care, okay?